Very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Magandang umaga, magandang tanghali, magandang hapon, magandang gabi. Wherever you're located and whatever your time zone is, welcome to the Chronicles, and this is Rita Gadi. Today we have a very special guest. I've been trying to get him for quite some time, but you know how busy he is. But nevertheless, some of the rare individuals that you would find is this man that will be our guest this today. He is really one of the finest minds I've ever met. And not only that, he's also quite creative, imaginative, and that's exactly what makes him different from a lot of other people, especially from politicians, because he also dabbled in politics. But beyond that, he's the kind of person that is rarely found, and we are so glad to have him this afternoon, one of the finest minds this side of the planet. Sir Butch PICHAY, good afternoon.
Wow, good afternoon, Rita. That was very, very kind introduction. Kaya lang medyo may reklamo ako.
Ano yon?
Kulang ng the most romantic.
Ayan, oo
guy
nga, of course. My best regards to Carla. Anyway, do you see his smile? My goodness. You know, you've lost a lot of weight, huh? Which is good because for some time, talagang medyo pero you look good. You look very good. You can tell kasi kita ko na yung dimples mo eh. Yan.
I've been very busy lately, Rita. I'm trying to revitalize the radio station, DZM.
Yes.
It's a network.
Yes.
We will be opening our branch in Bicol.
Ah, good.
And then probably put up one in Cagayan de Oro, Zamboanga, and Iloilo.
That's very
and
good.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so
good.
that,
Yeah.
we can be heard. We can be heard all over the country because it's worthwhile really talking to the people about what's happening in our country today. And besides the radio station, I'm busy developing a fertilizer that will be the answer to the promise of our president na bababa ang presyo ng bigas. This fertilizer is organic, and this fertilizer can double the yield per hectare with less input. In other words, if the inorganic fertilizer has an input of around 40 to 50,000, itong atin is only around 30,000 to 40,000, and yet it will double the yield.
That's very good.
Yan.
Yeah. Ang galing.
Makakatulong yan sa ating Pangulo. And then there's another company that I'm also opening up. It's about it's an alcoholic drink, and it will be called Ocho Cantos. Gin ito, gin.
Ocho Cantos.
Totoong gin ito, hindi ito gin na laced with synthetic flavor.
That's a good name, Ocho Cantos. May 4 cantos ito, ocho doble. Anyway, where are we? Yeah.
It's of infinity. If you look at smart cell phone, it's actually 8 infinity.
Oh, yes, why not? Exactly. That's very good. I was mentioning earlier how creative you actually are, but here we are now at this particular stage, and that's exactly what I want to ask you about. How is our junior president?
Well, the president is very sincere with all his promises, and I think the cabinet should really work harder because the president cannot do it alone. It needs a good team. But sometimes, I feel that there is no teamwork among the cabinet members. I think it was a conduct unbecoming of Secretary Diokno to say that we were not consulted. Had we been consulted, we would have recommended reduction in tariff or suspension of tariff as far as rice is concerned. So the biggest issue now is the price of rice. And of course, the biggest issue is actually inflation. Alam niyo mga kababayan, yung ibig sabihin ng inflation, yung pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin. Most especially yung food at most especially yung bigas kasi every Filipino really cannot survive without rice. So ito yung malaki. And then, knowing fully well that our biggest problem is inflation, yung ating budget secretary naman ay hindi binigyan ng malaking pondo ang Department of Agriculture, where the President himself is actually the Secretary of Agriculture,
exactly.
concurrent Secretary of Agriculture. So if you look at the disparity between the budget that was given to the Public Works and Highways, which is around 890 billion, vis-a-vis the Department of Agriculture na 190, talagang hindi natin matutugon yung mga pangarap ng ating mga kababayan na bababa yung presyo ng bilihin at magkakaroon tayo ng self-sufficiency as far as rice is concerned, as far as vegetable is concerned, or most of all, agricultural products. Kung ako lang ang tatanungin mo, I would have given the Department of Agriculture around 400 to 500 billion pesos in budget for 2024.
Yeah, but he's all over now, precisely. Yung kanyang pinramis nga na aasikasuhin niya yung presyo ng bigas. And you could see that ang una niyang ginawa as soon as he got back was precisely that. Na prior to that, na-announce na nga niya about smuggling and all of this importation of rice, some of it illegal. And that's exactly what he did. He went all over to distribute all of those smuggled rice. Anyway, going back to agriculture, maganda yung nasabi mo, Sir Butch, that you're developing a fertilizer, because that is also what he was showing the people when he was presenting what initiatives and what other items that he could give to the agricultural sector. So how soon can you have this fertilizer developed?
Well, I think I'll be able to start the production by the month of November.
Oh, that's next. Oh,
Documented na yan ng Department of Agriculture. And as far as the data is concerned, using my fertilizer and using an inbreed, hindi hybrid, inbreed seedlings, we were able to achieve around 8.3 tons per hectare. So 8,300 kilos per hectare of palay. Vis-a-vis 4.3 tons per hectare of rice using urea. So, ang laki ng diferensya, doble talaga. That's why I was inspired by my concoction of the fertilizer. So I called it double harvest. And I was very sure that it will really double the harvest of rice.
That's very good. But this, will you have enough production for our for the rest of the country?
Well, initially, the machines that we bought would be able to produce 30 tons per hour. So if I'll produce for 10, my production time will be 10 hours. Sabihin ko na lang, or 8 hours, but kung 10 hours, mga 300 tons, medyo madami-dami na rin yan. But definitely, it will not be able to supply the entire country. So probably the future expansion would be to put factories in Visayas and Mindanao, so that the logistics will not be a problem.
Yeah, but the president will be very happy, with this, because that's exactly his priority. Every time he goes abroad and every time he talks, that's exactly what he's saying. The agricultural sector needs all the support. Let's get back to the comment you made, Sir Butch. And sabi mo ga, sana naman ay merong suporta ang kanyang kabinete. And this is not just your observation, but we get this just about from many sectors na sinasabi nga na bakit parang si presidente lang ang ikot ng ikot, but you don't hear very much from his cabinet members, especially yan na nga, importante talaga yung sa price of commodities, especially now that you mentioned inflation also. Kaya mahalaga, noon meron nga tayong balita sa kabinete through the PMS, hindi ba, yung Presidential Management Staff, sila ang nagsisynthesize lahat ng nangyayari doon at yun nababalitaan natin. But this time, you have a good observation as far as that's concerned. What can be done?
Well, look, Rita, I think the president should really gather all the members of the cabinet and tell them to work together as a team. And then pangalawa, they should have also a voice kasi alter ego sila ng presidente. And like for example, sa Department of Energy, I haven't heard a word from Secretary Lutilla. I think he's just hiding in his office. He should assure the people na, look, electricity is high right now, but these are the things that we are trying to develop. And once these things will be put in place, then bababa na yung ating energy rate. To be honest with you, Rita, I think we should go for base loads. Noong araw, coal was considered a base load electricity. Pag sinabi mong base load, ito yung talagang pinanggagalingan ng murang rate ng electricity, kagaya ng hydroelectric plant. And the cheapest, of course, is the nuclear power plant. Then you have geothermal plant. And then dati coal-fired plant, but coal-fired is now considered a fossil fuel, so it's equivalent to a thermal generating power plant.
Right.
Kaya kailangan baliktarin natin kasi as we speak now, yung base load natin ay hindi na, ang ideal kasi, Rita, is around 70% should be base load and then 30% should be peak load. Ano ba yung peak load? Ito yung mga power na i-generate mo from 6 o'clock in the evening up to 10 o'clock in the evening. Dahil alam mo naman, pag 6 o'clock, may nagpa-plancha, may nagluluto using rice cooker, using gas range, nagbe-bake ng oven. And of course, uuwi na yung mga nagtatrabaho and then they will turn on their aircon. Ma-off yan pag natutulog na between 10 and 11. So ito yung mga peak load. So anong ginagamit yan? Ito yung thermal. But if you look at the importation of our country, the total importation is around, as far as fossil fuel is concerned, is around $15 billion a year. So that is the third largest import that we are doing. $15 billion of fossil fuel.
Yun ang problema kasi natin. You mentioned something about the Secretary of Energy na parang hindi natin nadidinig kung ano bang talagang magagawa. Because there, as you mentioned, what do you call this? Yung tinatawag natin na nuclear, for instance. Sometime back, even during the time of President Duterte, that was already touched upon. Now you have Congressman Cojuangco who was also pushing for that. Yun ang sanang nagawa ka agad. Sabi nga, it will take about 18 months just to refurbish the nuclear plant. Pero wala pa rin, hindi pa rin umaandar. So that,
And
yeah.
we are not getting updates. We're not getting updates. I haven't even seen Lutilla on TV. Gusto ko makita kung tumanda na ba siya o hindi pa. Kasi I've known him for a long time. At least nagsasalita si NEDA Secretary.
Balisakan.
And he agreed with me as far as reduction in tariff is concerned because way back August 15, I already said that the price of rice will go up. So I recommended even to Speaker Romualdez that I think the President should suspend the tariff so that we will be able to cushion the increase in price of rice. Alam mo, napakahalaga niyan because that is a political commodity. When you say political commodity, look at what India is doing. India stopped the export of rice because next year will be an election and they don't want the price of rice in India to go up because they might lose the elections. Kaya dinawal ngayon yung pag-export ng rice ng India. And that is the reason why prices went up because Indonesia is also buying. And then Vietnam normally would only buy around 100,000 metric tons from the farmers in Vietnam. But this time, because they want to protect the people of Vietnam from El Nino, the government of Vietnam bought from their farmers 1 million metric tons. Kaya tumaas yung presyo ng bigas.
Okay,
And
kaya kailangan talaga matapos na yung fertilizer mo. It's all the input for agriculture is really important, especially now. But I really have to be clarified why, sabi nga ni Presidente, we are overfishing. Anong ibig sabihin niya dito that we are overfishing?
well, unang-una, probably the president is alarmed that we are importing galunggong. Ang galunggong naman talaga dapat dito sa Pilipinas yan. But hindi rin naman natin alam na yung mga Chinese fishermen are fishing it from Philippine territory. Kaya siguro yung mga Coast Guard ng Chinese talagang ini-encroach yung ating territory. So, that is the reason why the president is saying overfishing dahil nag-i-import tayo ng tawag nito, ng isda. But again, kung titingnan mo naman yung budget ng BIFAR, it's only around 9 billion. You know, we can develop fish farming. Imagine Korea, Japan, they have fish cages that would cater to tuna fish like yellowfin tuna, bluefin tuna, and then the big eye tuna, large eye tuna. Ito yung mga high value is the bluefin tuna and the large eye tuna. We have that kind of tuna in the Philippines.
Yes.
So we have two kinds of tuna here, the yellowfin tuna and the big eye tuna. But dahil sa kakulangan din ng ating pondo sa BIFAR, hindi talaga natin madidevelop. Ang dami nating mga bay na pwede nating lalagyan ng mga fish cages. And then if we can put a lot of fish cages, we can be exporting fish all over the world. So these are the big problems because yung in charge ng budget din naman ay wala namang business sense. Kaya hindi niya alam kung ano yung bibigyan ng priority at ano yung hindi. Yun ang problema. So kailangan mo kasi dyan sa Department of Budget, kailangan may business sense. So ano ba ang dapat natin bibigyan ng priority sa pondo? Pwede mo nga walain yung pondo sa public works and highways because konkreto naman yung mga kalsada natin. And then we put some with the Department of Health so we can build, alam mo, kailangan natin mga apex hospitals sa bawat region.
Yeah.
When you say
Hospitals,
hospital, hindi ka na kailangan magpapadala ng pasyente sa Cebu, sa Maynila. Kung hindi, doon na mismo sa region ninyo, pwede na nyo ipadala. And it will be the final referral hospital. And that's synonymous to Apex Hospital. Yun. These are the things na dapat bigyan natin ng priority. The other is Department of Energy. I think we have to revisit the EPIRA law so that the government can again build generating units. Because under the EPIRA law, the government is not allowed to build generating units. That was the recommendation of the World Bank when I was a neophyte congressman. Dahil sabi nila, nagbi-bleed raw yung Philippines dahil nasusubsidize natin yung NPC. To me, I'd rather subsidize the National Power Corporation basta yung power rates natin ay hindi tataas. Because if we can retain a lower rate of power, then a lot of investors will come to the Philippines. The president doesn't have to travel. They will queue up. Dito tayo kasi 2 pesos lang yung power rate sa Pilipinas. They will queue up. Right now, the Philippines is one of the most expensive. So we cannot compete as far as plastic industry is concerned, steel industry is concerned, glass industry is concerned. These are the industries that uses a lot of power.
Yeah, exactly. As you were saying, the EPIRA law has to be looked into. That is where the transfer from government running the public service for energy transferred it now to the private sector. That's the problem we're having. That's exactly why a lot of people are complaining, precisely because it seems that we are dependent on the private sector that's giving us the electric rates, energy rates, and so forth. So it's not just revisiting EPIRA, but I think really something has to be done as far as that's concerned. Kasi nga, during the time, prior to EPIRA, the government is the one running our power sector. And that's why you had the PNOC, you have, part of the Department of Energy. So Yan ba pwede pang ibalik sa private sector, I mean sa government sector at this time? Because public service should be handled by government.
Why not? Sabi ko nga, power is the heart and soul of every economy. If your power rate is high, forget, we cannot be competitive all over the world.
Exactly.
But if we have a very, very low power rate, then we will be very competitive. So we can compete in plastic products, we can compete in our steel products. Tingnan mo, yung nickel natin, ine-export natin sa sa raw ore.
Yeah.
Yung ating copper, ine-export natin sa Japan. Yung nickel sa China. Because if we put a smelting plant in the Philippines, the power rates are too high. We will not be very competitive.
That's true.
Imagine mo, ang cost ng power sa steel at saka sa plastic is around 40%.
Yeah, that's right. That's very true. That's why we really have not just to look into the APIRA law, but something has to be done so that electricity power is really very important. But other than that, when we speak of the many policies, pronouncements, programs that President Jr. has announced, and then you have supposedly support of the cabinet, but it's been over a year now, and that's why, as you mentioned, yung infrastructure, para halos kompleto na yan, but more should be given to agriculture. So, when we speak of this, paano magkakaroon ng balancing na dito? Because right now, we're having that problem precisely. Basic commodities, especially rice, hanggang ngayon, parang pinagpoproblemahan pa yan.
Alam mo, Rita, you have to know the problem, the root of the problem, to be able to solve the problem. Like, for example, sa agriculture, one of the biggest problems that our country has encountered was the agrarian reform. So, nung araw, may tinatawag tayong corporate farming. Meron tayong tinatawag na landlords. So, hindi masyadong gumagastos yung ating pamahalaan para sa mga large tract of lands like 2,000 hectares, 3,000 hectares. Bakit? Yung landlord ang bumibili ng equipment, modern equipment. Yung landlord ang bumibili ng tawag nito, mga inputs. Yung big corporations ang bumibili ng mga farm implements. So nung mag-land reform, imagine mo, 1,000 hectares, i-divide mo yan, tagwa 1 hectare, 1,000 hectares na farmers bibigyan mo na wala namang puhunan. So nawawala yung economy of scale. Since nawawala yung economy of scale, yun na yung problema. Even when I was a first-termer congressman, I already questioned the land reform, that it is counterproductive to agricultural growth. Where we are saying that this country is an agricultural country, we're hampered by the land reform program. And not only that, we are visited by typhoons 22 times a year. Masyado tayong hospitable sa mga bagyo. Ewan ko ba bakit tayo hospitable sa mga bagyo?
You're so correct. This land reform program really does not only need review, but something has to be done at this stage. Kailan pa ba yan? 1974? And since then, sabi mo nga, we had, well, in the beginning, corporate farming, etc. Hindi rin ano. I remember how it was. Maraming nag-aral how it was in Israel. Yung mga kibbutz, hindi rin ano yun. Today, for instance, they just recently, they had this emancipation for all whatever utang that the farmers had. But nationwide pa yon. You had Australia, and then you had junior president there announcing all of this, and everybody was clapping. But as you said, let's get back to the root cause of all of this. As you said, can we go back to, well, not corporate farming, but can we get, for instance, the rich people, going into farming again, as you said, para yung mga farmers sa sweldohan na lang, they would not suffer during the times na walang kita, walang ani, and so forth, And it was
we can always convince them. Or there is another way. Let's organize professional cooperatives. Like for example, in Europe, makikita mo may mga dairy farm, dairy farm products,
Mm.
makikita mo big factories. Pag tinanong mo, who owns that? Ang sagot ay ang mga farmers ang may-ari niyan. But it is being managed by a professional manager.
Yeah.
So that is one way of trying to circumvent the land reform program. But the best talaga kasi pag mag-organize ka rin ng cooperative, wala rin mga puhunan yan, mga leader yan ni congressman, mga leader yan ni governor. Pagbigay ng pera, they will say, well, pera naman ng gobyerno ito. Huwag na natin bayaran. So at the end of the day, I think the president dapat pulungin niya yung mga big businessmen and tell them to pull their resources together and to start going into agriculture again. An example, Rita, di ba namang problema tayo ng supply ng sugar?
Okay.
Okay. Alam mo bakit namang problema tayo ng supply ng sugar? Number one, ang sugarland kailangan din ng irrigation. Para kung makikita mo yung variety natin compared to Guatemala, malaki ang diferensya. Alam mo ba na ang Pilipinas produces 50 tons per hectare compared to Guatemala, whose production is around 100 tons per hectare. So again, doble yung production ng Guatemala. We should learn probably from Guatemala. And then another reason kung bakit nagkakaroon tayo ng shortage because we in Congress, supposedly the brilliant minds of Congress, we passed a bill imposing a higher tax sa sweetened products if you use high fructose corn syrup. Nung araw, yung ating mga soft drinks manufacturers at saka mga juices, ang ginagamit ay high fructose corn syrup. Ngayon, nung naipasa yung batas na yon, mga sweetened product, pag gumamit ka ng high fructose corn syrup per liter ng soft drinks, ang babayaran mo ay 12 pesos. Pag gagamit ka ng refined sugar, ang babayaran mo lang ay 6 pesos. Again, all these things about protecting the local farmers, that's to me a lot of bullshit, you know. We are a free enterprise. We are a signatory to WTO.
Yeah.
Kaya, since tumigil yung mga soft drinks manufacturer to use high fructose corn syrup, around 250,000 metric tons of high fructose corn syrup ang hindi na ini-import natin. So anong substitute nyo yun? Refined sugar. So yung ating quota na dapat i-export sa US, nagagamit na natin yan for local consumption at kulang pa rin. So ito yung mga problema ba na dapat pag-aralan ng mabuti. And I think the economic managers, mag-aaral naman sila.
You know, it sounds so basic when the way you discuss it, and that's exactly what they should look into. Yun sinasabi mo nga, the economic manager should study this because you know, as you explain it, everything seems to be how it should be done. Ang laki ng diferensya between the imported and the refined sugar. There was a time when we had the Sugar Quota Administration, then you had the Philippine Coconut Administration, lahat yan, ang dami ng tinayo niyan, precisely to protect the sugar industry. And the same thing goes with a lot of other products, you know, hindi lang sa sugar. Can you imagine, nagka-problema tayo sa onions? When Central Luzon was actually supplying us, you know, oversupply. Oo.
Kulang ang supply ng onions.
Bakit?
Alam mo, going back to sugar, no? Yung Colombia, alam mo bang they export a lot of muscovado to Europe because the Spaniards, they love muscovado. Aside from drugs, Colombia is exporting rice. Muscovado. Muscovado pala. So, they are exporting a lot of So, I think that's one industry na dapat din i-develop ng tawag nito, Philippine Sugar Commission.
Yes.
Dapat i-develop yun. Like for example, may mga gumagawa rito sa Abra, mayroong 50 hectares and they produce a lot of muscovado. But it's not enough. Kailangan mo siguro 100 hectares para medyo mura-mura yung presyo ng muscovado in the market. Ako naniniwala ko na yung maskubado na price dito sa Pilipinas, overpriced yan. Why? Hindi naman, it did not undergo so much reformation. Maskubado is, okay, you squeeze the sugarcane juice. Pag na-squeeze mo yan, ilalagay mo yan sa jacketed kettle para nang sa ganon ay hindi masyadong iitim. Yung jacketed kettle kasi, nagpapaano niyan is the steam. And then it's not a direct fire. And then ako control mo, let's say 100 degrees centigrade so that the water will evaporate. Pag nag-evaporate na yan, ayan, maskubado na yung natitira.
But you also have muscovado coming from the coconut, di ba? So,
yes, so you have also maskubado coming from the coconut. So there's a lot of things that can be done talaga kung gagawa tong ating mga members ng cabinet.
Well, other than that, we still have a review to make as far as the laws are concerned. Sabi ko nga early on, we have 300 or so of those in Congress, and we have so many laws already that are already there. Some of them are led in the archives. Wala talagang nagsa-sort out. Baka yung iba dyan, one example actually is land reform. I mean, that should have been reformed already as far as that law is concerned. Marami pa rin na kailangan talagang tutugunan, so to speak. But now we're coming in again in this political period, Sir Butch, and perhaps that's one area. When you say something like, we have to look at the root cause of many things, ayan na. We speak of those that are elected into office. We speak of those that are appointed into office. But this all boils down to the people that we choose, especially during election time. In a few months, barangay. And then in a year or so, we will be having for national election, Senate, Congress, and then all the local officials. Time was, we only had two parties. Now, political parties mushroom all over. Political parties, as you said, hindi na ito a matter of principle, matter of personalities. So, yan ang malungkot.
Right now, we have politics of personalities. And to be honest with you, if you are popular, even if you're not qualified, you're going to win pag tumakbo ka sa national office. Pagdating naman sa local office, highest bidder yan. Kung sinong makakabili ng mataas na presyo, yun ang mananalo.
It's very sad, because many of our kasama sa bahay nga would go home kasi pag election time, ang laki ng bayad sa probinsya sa mga boto.
Sa amin, I think umaabot ng 15,000 per vote.
Wow!
Hindi ko kaya yon, kaya hindi tayo namili ng boto.
Wow.
I thought that a real politician is you serve the people, and if they're satisfied with your service, then they will elect you back. Pero ngayon, it seems that we really have, Rita, I think we really have to educate the electorate. Because after the election, nagrereklamo sila. Sometimes, merong tatawag sa radio station. Congressman, bakit ganito? Sabihin ko, kasalanan mo yan eh. Pinili mo ito eh. Di bahala ka.
That's a very novel way of looking at it. Kasi sa mga tumatakbo for public office, Sir Butch, tinitingnan qualifications, kung nakigraduate, kung ganito, ganyan. But you said the education of the voter. Do you know that 2,500 years ago, Plato wrote that book, The Republic? And that's exactly what he proposed, exactly what you're saying now. The education of the voter. There has to be an academy for the voter. So we get the kind of people that we put in the office. Why? Because, something happens along the way and we do not choose the best because we need to be educated too as a voter. What do we do with electoral reforms when it's not happening at all?
Well, alam mo, sometimes I feel like mas maganda pa ata yung system of government sa China kasi they do not elect the governors and the mayors. They just appoint them. At pag hindi maganda yung performance, they put them in jail. Or they will assassinate them. Firing squad. So sometimes, because of frustration, you think that way. But I think Now is the time for the Vice President, who is the Secretary of Education, to inculcate in the minds of the youth that pag they are now of age and they will be voting, they should not sell their votes. Because napakahalaga po niyan. It's supposed to be sacred and it will determine the future of your country. Not just your municipality, not just your province, but your country.
But there could be some limits to this. As we said, electoral reform should be in place. Like sinasabi nga, you can only spend so much, etc. and all of that. But it's not really being done. So we go now to, as you said, fundamentals and basics. We need to have a new constitution that would have changes already in this particular area, electoral reforms. So, but it seems that having a new constitution is being, wala na. It was popular during the time of President Duterte, hindi na natuloy, and then now we hardly ever hear this. And of course, the members of Congress at this stage, I don't think they would even push for this. So that's the
Ito
sad
pa,
part about it.
Rita, meron pang dagdag. Nung araw, okay, siyempre, bilihan ng boto, yung ganyan-ganyan. Ngayon, meron namang modus operandi yung Smartmatic. Hindi na yung boto yung bibilhin mo, si Smartmatic na yung
Smartmatic
bibilhin
na lang.
mo.
Oh my goodness.
My God, ang daming problema nitong bansang ito.
Yeah, so where are we? That's exactly what our title of the program is. Where are we at this stage? We have a president who means well. At his inaugural speech, it was quite inspiring, especially when he said that your dreams are also my dreams. So here we have some kind of a symbiotic relationship with leadership that means well. But it's been
Rita,
over a year. So where are we now?
If you remember when I ran for senator, what did I say? Pangarap kong tuparin ang mga pangarap nyo.
Yes.
This line with BBM.
Exactly.
And I want to be with him about this dream to make this country once again a great nation.
Precisely. But there, I could count perhaps with just one hand how many of you are having this kind of an ideal. That is important to have a vision for the country. I don't think we have that in our politicians nowadays. As you could see, the behavior that they've had over the past how many sessions since 1986. And, well, sad to say that it has not improved, or the level at least has not elevated itself, or the bar of excellence has not been achieved at all. So again, going back to my question of a change in the Constitution, going back to the fundamentals, will this help?
It will help a lot, but we must be dreaming if we think about changing the Constitution. Kahit anong pangarap ang gagawin mo, hindi mo maaabot yung pangarap natin, mabago yung ating saligang batas.
It's so sad, because you had a former Chief Justice, Renato Puno, and of course that group that he had that already went all over the country, precisely explaining many of the aspects of this supposedly new constitution, to make it just brief and simple, and something that is of a language that we can all understand, para hindi masyadong legalist and so forth. But anyway, as you said, pangarap nga, Sir Butch. But how do we go about it? Where are we actually today? Early on, you mentioned how how it was as far as other countries are concerned, the way they export certain products and all. But if you look at the graph and you look at the statistics, it's very sad that a lot of countries in Southeast Asia have already overcome us. So
for taking us, yeah. Like for example, okay, I talked to Yusek Sebastian. Sabi niya, we taught the Vietnamese how to plant coffee. I said, yeah, but now Vietnam is exporting $2.4 billion of coffee. And we are importing almost the same. Tingnan mo, yung coffee ko, 3-in-1, that's an Indonesian coffee. And 90% of our consumption of coffee is imported from Vietnam, from Ethiopia, from Indonesia, and from Colombia. Yan ang sad part. Bakit? Yung binigay din naman ng Department of Budget dito sa BPI, Bureau of Plant Industry, na dapat magdi-distribute ng mga seedlings is only 1.9 billion. Sipin mo naman, 1.9 billion, isang project lang yan ng Public Works and Highways. Sana binigyan mo lang ng mga 10 billion para nang sa ganun, makakaroon tayo ng intercropping sa mga coconut land. We have hundreds of thousands of hectares of coconut land. So pag tinaniman natin yan, intercropping, pwede tayo mag-export. Intercropping ng cacao, intercropping ng coffee. Kailangan talaga mabigyan natin ng dagdag yung BPI, Department of Bureau of Plant and Industry.
You see, the problem again is how budget is being allocated. We have Congress deliberating on this, and what we hear is it only took a couple of minutes or maybe just one session, approved na yung budget. Hindi nahihimay. I mean, there's so many things that we're discussing right now. For instance, Sir Butch, when you speak of the Department of Agriculture and all of these other bureaus under it, so even in the Department of Education, you were mentioning something about the education of the voter, but other than that, other things also should be done. Kasi ang K-12, for instance, that really needs not just a review, but I think it should not be patterned the way we got it from another country in Europe. Pumasok yan dito, ibang bansa ang gumagamit niyan. So, it doesn't serve the purpose at all to have 2 extra years for courses or for subjects that you will not get into after all.
I'm not a believer of K-12 because I'm not
Congratulations.
a product of K-12. But look at Rita Gadi, she's so brilliant and yet wala namang K-12 yan. Diba?
Precisely, oo.
The late Ferdinand Marcos was my idol. Hindi naman na K-12 yan, but he's one of the most brilliant president this country has ever produced.
Precisely. So, in the Department of Education, it's not just a review. They should altogether go back to the original courses that we had in the primary and secondary. And then, what is it in the first few years when you enter primary? I think that is where we go back na naman, Sir Butch, to the moral foundation of character. When you look at the products we have coming from all the schools, private and public, and you look at the quality of the people that will be leading our nation, we have lost one generation already because of the influx of so many dollars coming from OFW parents. And so, ang kanilang main activity is to buy all the gadgets, a TV, etc. and all. We are losing this generation again now that is in front of the mobile phone, involved in all of these games and TikTok and all of this. So all of these things should be looked into, not just the Department of Education, but in the first years to tell our students precisely, saan ba ang kayo pupunta? You see, our future leaders will be dancing the TikTok or whatever it is, because that's exactly what they had. Even Saint Peter daw, pag may mga bagong dating sa langit, nagtataka siya bakit yung mga daliri nitong mga ito, nakayuko sila at they miss their mobile phones and they're already in heaven. My goodness. Anyway, that's supposed to be a New Yorker joke.
Well, let's put it this way, Rita. I think the president, because he has good intentions for our country, he should sit down with people who has no agenda.
Yes.
Whose only agenda is to help this country.
Yes.
And then, maglagay tayo ng blueprint. How do we make this country move forward? Paano natin mapapakasya yung ating budget without drastically increasing it? And paano natin mapapataas yung GDP, not depending on the remittance of the OFWs, and not depending on the government spending. Ang dami nating ayuda. May mga tinutulungan ako ngayon yung mga MSMEs. And yan ang kailangan siguro natin tutukan because these are the people that will increase the GDP of our country. Ang daming magagandang produkto ng ating mga kababayan. Like for example, isang ehemplo, ito, ipapakita ko sa iyo. Itong cacao galleon. Napakasarap nitong chocolate na ito. Mga bonbons, mga candies, chocolate bars. And this guy was a former OFW. And he worked with a French chocolatier. Then nagkaroon ng pandemic, he came home, then he started a small business. And mind you, there's a lot of them. I think yung nagiging guest ko na around 10. One of them is from the US. Ito naman yung produkto niya. Gawa nito sa US, based in San Francisco. Chocolate din. Ang pangalan ay Coca. And yet, problema nila is puhunan. Problema nila are equipment. And that is where the government should come in. Titingnan natin yung mga potential. Imagine mo, balikbayan, pagdating ng Pilipinas, bibili ng sa duty free, mga chocolate products. Saan gawa? Switzerland, gawa ng France. Mayroon bang made in the Philippines? Wala. So we really have to rationalize everything in the country. So kailangan magbuo yung ating Pangulo ng think tank na walang agenda kung hindi para sa ikabubuti ng ating bansa. And then once nabuo na yung blueprint ng ating bansa, then the President should sit on it, seriously considering it. So anong mga consequence pag itong ginawa, anong mga consequence? And then, there should be pros and cons para nang sa ganun ay magkakaroon ng magandang discussion.
But the President,
Sir Butch, even without amending the Constitution, may pag-asa pa yung ating bansa na maano natin yung ating mga pangarap, maabot natin yung ating mga pangarap.
So that's where we are right now. But I see that the President actually has cabinet meetings, I think twice, even 3 times a week. I mean, like you see this from their releases, on television. Briefly, the President meets with economic managers. The President meets with several businessmen. But the cabinet meeting actually is, I think it's once a week, quite often, as a matter of fact. So
every Tuesday, I think. Is it every Tuesday or once a month?
No, it's quite often, Sir Butch. If not the cabinet, at least he meets with a lot of people. So here we have, as you said, already a meeting of minds, so to speak, when you have to draw the mapping of where we are. That's exactly what we're trying to project as far as as far as the situation is concerned, because our President means well. And he is, he's busying himself as best as he could, answering to the immediate concerns. Like immediately you had problems with onion, and then now it's with rice, and then several others. And he has actually already announced several things that will have to be done, even tertiary hospitals in the regions and so forth. Practically, if you look at all the different departments, meron na talaga siyang, all of this, he has already touched on them. But as you said, we go back to the basics. So where we are right now, where are we proceeding to?
Well, it seems that despite of the meetings in the cabinet, it seems that they don't have the grasp of the situation of the entire country.
Why so?
Well, I don't know. Probably they're just busy with their department. And, when you're in the cabinet, you have to think about what will be the effect of their actions with other departments. In other words, you have to harmonize all your actions. Imagine mo, okay, yung pondo ng livelihood, mayroong livelihood ang DOLE, mayroong livelihood ang DSWD, mayroong livelihood ang DTI. I mean, you have to pull those money together. If this is for livelihood, then it should be handled by only one agency. Hindi yung, meron siyang sariling livelihood. Kami, meron din kami sariling livelihood. Kami rin, meron eh. So, nasasayang yung pera kasi it's not spent properly. Kaya, what I'm saying here, it seems that there is no harmony among all the cabinet members. And I think the President should realize that, okay, sinasabi ng ating Pangulo, magkakaroon ng tertiary hospital. Tingnan mo yung budget kung meron bang pondo dyan. Wala. So it cannot be implemented. Sabi ng ating Pangulo na kailangan magkakaroon tayo ng self-sufficiency. Sabi ng Pangulo natin na kailangan mababa yung presyo. Of course, alam naman natin na this is a worldwide inflation because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Pero dapat yung Department of Agriculture, nilagyan ng malaking pondo yan. But anong pondong binigay natin? 190 billion. That's not even 1/3 of the budget of the DPWH. So, kailangan palitan din natin yung ating Secretary ng Department of Budget. Imagine mo, yung sports in 2022, 23, ang budget ng sports is 2.3 billion. For 2004, 210 million. Well, wow. I'm sure that is a mistake. Pwedeng gawing erratum yan, pero what a glaring mistake. Biroy mo, nagkakamali ka by billions.
Oo nga, grabe. Anyway, and you have a number of outstanding athletes already winning medals for us, as a matter of fact. This is how we look at the situation from our point of view. We who are in the broadcast, whether it's in social networking. And I have to congratulate you, Sir Butch, for expanding DCME. I have to announce that I started broadcasting with DZME early morning for several years. As a matter of fact, ang ganda ng training ko dyan. And I'm so glad that, that I was there with you for quite some time. But that is the way. And the title of my program, kayo nagbigay niyan, Sentido Común.
Sentido Común. But, Rita, it's the other way around. I was the one being lectured by you.
Hala.
Sometimes I would guest in your program because you're actually a very experienced journalist. You were the favorite of the late President Marcos. I know that.
Nahasa.
So you cannot be a favorite of the late president if you are a nonsense media woman.
Well, for whatever it may be worth, that was part of our education, so to speak. And of course, it was really quite a privilege to have been able to interview a number of heads of state, from Deng Xiaoping all the way to several others. And that too is something that we have to acknowledge as far as our past is concerned. But that is where we are supposed to be going forward. And in many ways, Sir Butch, malungkot na sa ating tinatawag na mainstream media, there is not enough that should be taken care of or that should be written about, especially as you were discussing today, the aspects that will have to be brought to the attention of our people. Basic, yung sinasabi mga fertilizers, yung sinasabi mga products and all of this, we don't read that anymore in the mainstream media. And there's a lot of a lot of information and data coming sa social networking. And that is why the president had to announce that there should be only the truth that you should come out with, So your experience in media, Sir Butch, is something that, we have to expand that. Pero that's the sad part about it. How do you see how our information programs, not private, and is actually going?
Very, very sad, Rita, because nowadays good news is not news. Bad news is news. Fake news is news. So that's the sad part. So we made it a policy in our radio station, in our network, that we should be very positive. And if we have to criticize, it has to be a constructive criticism. Meaning to say, we should have an alternative solution to the problem. Yun ang dapat nagawin ng ating mga kabaro sa media. Hindi yung sensationalize na, oy, mumurahin natin itong politiko na ito, mumurahin natin itong cabinet member na ito para na sa ganun ay magre-rate ang programa. You know, these people also in the cabinet, they're trying their best. Pero anong magagawa natin kung hanggang doon lang talaga sila? Di ba?
That's very sad. But let's get back to what is at hand, because the barangay is the basic political unit of our country. You mentioned earlier that sana kagaya ng China, i-appoint na lang. Sometime back, President Duterte thought of that, na yung barangay, i-appoint na lang sila para madaling tanggalin kung sakaling merong anomaly. But that we haven't had any changes. I'd like to go back to that precisely. And perhaps to call attention to our legislators as far as, elections are concerned, political parties are concerned. You yourself has already underlined the fact that political parties are just personality, etc. But what do we do? Where are we at this stage? Magbabarangay elections na naman, and that's it, So, what can be done?
Well, uuwi na naman yung katulong mo dahil mamimili na naman ang boto.
Oo.
At the moment, what can we do? We cannot do anything because parang kultura na yan. Again, we're asking the Secretary of Education, who is no less than the Vice President, to inculcate in the minds. It's not a short-term solution. It's a long-term solution. Matagal po yan.
Yeah. It begins really with
Siguro
education.
baka gayahin natin na lang yung Japan. Pag nagnakaw ka, puputulan ka ng daliri.
And perhaps we really should be continuing the work that we're at. Sir Butch, I'd like to congratulate you for looking for alternative and new kinds of fertilizers to help our production of the basic cereal, the basic food that we actually have. Sabi mo nga, walang Pilipino hindi kumakain ng kanin and all of this. But other than that, we do not have enough of this initiative coming from where it should come from. And that's precisely, yeah.
Oh, why don't you say it? Where it should come from. Okay.
Not a lot of people have anything between their ears. And that's the sad part about it, Sir Butch. And, we can only, like you said, you can go on talking and featuring. I've watched some of your programs, and you have some of these inventors and those with all of these products. And you've gone down to be interviewing them and really drawing them out as models for us to be able to get into that also. But
because that's one field that this government should strengthen. I'll tell you a story about Bangladesh. Bangladesh had the lowest economy between Pakistan.
It has
India,
overcome us already.
and Bangladesh. So yung per capita nila was the lowest. What did they do? They made reforms in their economy, and then they said, okay, if you're a group of 5 and you have a business proposal, we're going to give you a seed money as capital. And napakaganda ng idea, kailangan 5, hindi pwedeng isa lang, kasi kung isa lang, baka ibulsa, baka itur. So kung hindi pa, mag-aaway yun. Hindi, dapat dito natin ilalagay yan, di ba? Dito sa ating bansa, kukunti yung binigay natin na pera sa DTI. Pagkatapos, pag nagsisimula ka pa, hindi ka po pwedeng papautangin. Only after 3 years na naging profitable yung business mo, tsaka ka papautangin. Yung akin lang is, dagdagan natin siguro yung pondo ng DTI. Like for example, yung mga bazaar, nakakatulong yan sa mga MSMEs. Magkano lang binigay natin na budget yan sa bureau na yan? Alam mo, 25 million lang. I think we really have to increase it to 100 million para nang sa ganon ay magkakaroon ng maraming bazaar. In fact, I proposed to the speaker to increase it, and the speaker promised when he delivered the speech, dahil champion din naman si speaker ng mga MSMEs. And I think if the president will be informed about it, I'm sure that the president will support also that. Kaya what I propose to the speaker is dapat magkakaroon ng permanent venue yung mga MSMEs. Kasi sa ngayon, i-rent nila yung Mega Mall, and then sometimes doon sa World Trade, at napakamahal ng rent. At hindi sila whole year round, kung hindi 3 days, 5 days. Dapat whole year round yung mga bazaar na yan. Para nang sa ganon, madidiscover yung mga produkto nila. One of the guests, may kukwento ko sa iyo, Rita, very interesting story. One of our guests, ang negosyo niya ay herbs. And then one day, a Japanese went to his shop at may pinapakita na seeds, itim na seeds. Sabi ng hapon, meron ka ba nito? He said, yes, yes. Kahit hindi niya alam ano yon. Alam mo, very kasi itong babae na ito, very enterprising. He said, yes, meron. So the Japanese left the seeds, and then she went to Quezon province. Sabi niya, ano ba itong seeds na ito? Sabi ng mga taga Quezon, aba, seeds yan ng malunggay. Yung bunga ng malunggay, yan yung seeds. So kunin mo, marami dito, i-gather mo, and then ibilad mo sa araw. So nakagather siya ng 100 kilos. Then he went back to Marikina, to her shop. Then it dawned on her, wow, hindi ko na hingi yung telephone number ng hapon. Babalik pakalayang. Sabi niya, babalik pa kaya? And then after 2 days, bumalik nga. And then the Japanese said, do you have it now? She said, yes, I have it. I have 100 kilos. And then the Japanese asked, how much is that? And then he said, well, according to Alibaba, it's 120 pesos per kilo. 1,200 pesos per kilo. And the Japanese said, okay, I will buy all. So that day, she made 120, more or less 120,000 pesos na walang kapital. Yun pala ay gagawin nyo na moringa oil para sa cosmetic products.
Oh.
So yun yung mga istorya na nakukuha ko dito sa ating programa that I would like to share with people, including you. Malay mo baka,
Yeah, very good. Maybe we should document this. You could have a handbook. Somebody in your staff should be able to document this para maraming it's not just listening, but they actually read about it. There are so many things that we could get into, and I'm so glad, Sir Butch, that you have guested with us. I hope to have you again as often as possible whenever you're free, because there are many things that you could share with us. So again, I'd like to thank you for having joined us, Sir Butch PICHAY, and I wish you all the best.
My pleasure, Rita. You're one of the media men that I really admire.
Oh, wow.
Pagka tinatawag mo ako na mag-guest sa iyo,
Yes, kaagad.
Ano naman kaya ang sasabihin ko? Baka magkakamali ako, mapapag-Rita.
Well, thank you very much.
For guesting me again. It's really a big honor to be in your program.
My honor too to have you, Sir Butch. And of course, as a good friend and a very loyal person as far as the development of our country is concerned. Maraming salamat po. This has been the Chronicles of Rita Gadi. Thank you for all of you who have joined us.